I also let him know that I would never work at or recommend the district to anyone ever again. Then I left letting him know that I expect an amazing letter of recommendation by the end of the school day Friday afternoon, since I earned it for my service the past few years. So what am I going to do now? I called up an old friend on Wednesday who is currently a principal at a STEAM charter school, which stands for Science, Technology, Reading, Engineering, Arts, and Mathematics. And this school is a part of a chain of charter STEAM schools, and asked if he had a teaching position available. He's been asking me every year for the past 5 years to come work for him. He told me he had 3 openings and I could have my pick of them. So next year I will be, drumroll please, a 6th grade teacher, and I am very happy about it. I even get to design my own curriculum as long as it meets state standards. I could apply elsewhere for admin positions, but I think I need a break from school leadership. I need to love my work again like I used to as a teacher. Yes, there were many challenges, and sometimes I hated going to work, but I do love being a teacher. I feel bad for my current staff because the regime change will hit them hard, but there's nothing I can do about it. I wish I could help them. The most I could do would be to take a teaching position in my current school, but then I would be miserable with them and be helpless to do anything to aid them. So, for myself and my daughter, who I love more than anything, I am making the move to a new school and going back to what I enjoy doing, teaching. I'm even bringing my daughter to my new school to start next year as a 5th grader. I asked her if she wanted to stay at her current school or go to the STEAM school with me, and she wants to go with me. She was excited since she has visited there several times and loves the technology room, the robotics class, and the science labs. Plus, she is friends with some of the kids there already. As a goodbye to my staff, I am going out this weekend and I'm going to buy some nice letter paper and scratcher tickets. I am going to write short, individualized goodbyes to each of my staff members, and at the end I will include the following words. I'm giving you some scratcher tickets. My hope is that you are as lucky scratching them as I have been lucky to have worked with you. I have to finish my contract, but at the end of June I am free. I'm looking forward to teaching full-time again and having a boss who will let me do my job and not interfere. I don't think I want to work in administration again. Part 2, the revenge. So I put together goodbye gifts for all my staff, and I'll be handing them out Friday, their last day with kids. They have a bunch of goodies that I posted about before. I thought this weekend about how to give the finger one more time to the district office and help my teachers out, even in a small way. So I came up with it on Sunday night, the revenge. My district requires each teacher to attend additional training throughout the year. These are outside of the regular staff development trainings. They are run by district staff, SPED teachers, and admin. The training normally lasts 1 to 3 hours, and the teacher gets a certificate for the time spent in the training. Each teacher is required to attend 24 hours of these before the end of the school year. Most teachers take them over the summer if they are offered, so they don't have to take them during the school year. So yesterday morning, before work, I was making copies of the certificates for all the courses I have run in the past years: classroom management strategies, lockdown procedures, social studies strategies, math strategies, reading comprehension, and environmental print. I am going to fill them out with each of the teacher's name and the number of hours. I am adding all the times I ever spoke to the staff about these topics and putting down hours to correspond, rounding up to the nearest hour-ish. And wouldn't you know, each of these topics was 3 to 5 hours in length. Each staff member will have exactly 24 hours worth of training. I filled out all of the dates of the training for the 2022 and 2023 school year. Oh, and I have an attendance sheet with all of their names and have them marked as being present. I check with the district since I am still an administrator into the summer. I am allowed to run these trainings over the summer before I leave. Now, they can have their summer to themselves and not worry about taking classes during the school year. They can if they wish, but 99% of teachers here hate the mandatory training hours. I hope the staff likes the present. Part 3. Since Friday, I am no longer a school administrator. I technically have another week to work, but I took a vacation during that time because, well, screw them. Now I spent the last week packing up, giving aid and comfort to my now former staff, and causing problems for the new administrators who are total jerks. Now, besides giving the entire staff a free year from additional PDs, I wasn't planning on causing any more problems, just quietly leaving and driving off into the sunset, Shane style. But no, apparently I don't deserve a quiet week. The new principal demoted from assistant superintendent, and her new teacher on assignment, TOA, decided for some reason to be rude to me. There was only one response to that. I aimed to misbehave. How were they rude, you ask? First off, they ordered me to hurry and clean out my office. Apparently, the TOA, teacher on assignment, wanted to start redecorating my office. I was literally told, quote,
"Get all your personal stuff out of here ASAP. She wants her office now."
I still had a week to work there and actual work to do. Second, the new principal tried to steal my personal chair, my personal office supplies, and decorations. That chair was a gift to me from a friend. I found her just wheeling it out of my office and into hers. My desk supplies and banner for my wall were stacked on its seat. I told her that it was my personal chair, not the district's. She said, okay. The very next morning, I found it missing. She had moved it into her office after I left for the day. Third, I was given a list of tasks to complete by Friday by the teacher on assignment, who is in no way, shape, or form my boss. These were not my job to do and are in fact the incoming administration's duty to complete. Stuff the new admin are supposed to do. Things like putting together a new staff packet, schedule next year's PDs, fill out and submit request forms, etc. Finally, I was talked down to every single day by the new admin team. I was spoken to as though I were the hired help and they were the royal bees. Seriously, I speak to a waitress that messes up my order with 20 times the amount of respect that they showed me. They actually tried to get my attention by snapping their fingers at me, like that would work. The new principal also made some pretty anti-LGBTQ plus comments. I don't like narrow-minded people, so I decided to do as I was told. I was a soldier, so I know how to follow orders. First off, I removed everything that was my personal property. That included my chairs, decorations, the stress relievers, punching bag, etc., the fridge from the office, the filing cabinets from my office. Yes, I bought government surplus cabinets because I didn't have any. All my files and all of my former principal's files were in there. I even bought the manila folder that I used in it. So I took every piece of paper out of my cabinets, removed them from my labeled folders, stacked them on the floor into one large pile. There was no order to how they are stacked. I took my chair from the principal's office while she was in a meeting with parents. I just walked in and rolled it out. She stopped talking to the parents to ask what I was doing, and I responded that I was taking my personal property out ASAP as I was ordered to do. I had an old medium-sized fridge I had placed in the office workroom for the office staff to store their food in, but it's mine. So I took the fridge, I brought it right out the front door and loaded it into my truck. I even took the new admin's food out of it and left it on the table. It's my fridge. I warned the rest of the office I was taking it, but forgot to tell the admin. Darn. I copied all of my digital files onto a flash drive and then deleted everything off my work Google Drive. Anything I personally created or designed. I copied all my emails too. I informed the staff that if they needed time off next year and needed it approved, to submit the forms to me this week. I got several and they are now all approved. I got this idea from someone who messaged me here and suggested that I do this. Thanks for the advice. I approved every supply list item the staff submitted and even drove to the district warehouse to pick up some items personally. I even approved funds for a second-hand kiln for the art teacher. She found a good one on Craigslist. I had repaired my desk with bolts and tools from home, so I took the bolts back. The desk is now lopsided again. The closet door was broken when I got there, so I repaired it. I have now put it back as it was when I was hired. There was a two-way mirror to the detention room, which was mine. I had gotten it from a friend at another school, a different district. It allowed me to watch ISS and detention students from my office without them seeing me. I popped that right out and took it home. Now, the TOA has a hole in the wall so the detention kids can look through. I had put together all the lockdown buckets and fire drill bags myself with my own money. I took all of them back. This I felt bad about, but I will give them out to the staff in my new school. I put a rush order on all classroom and building repairs and have approved every order to have all the classrooms repainted. I assembled new staff packets and the new school year binders. Besides the basics of what was required, I have included throughout the binders in random places Dilbert cartoons, famous Harry Potter quotes, the lyrics to Nickelback's How You Remind Me, I Kissed a Girl by Katy Perry, All Star by Smash Mouth, and We Built a City by Starship. A map of the area where I marked all the good places to eat lunch off campus, funny Far Side teacher comics, cheesy teacher jokes, the union contact information, crossword Sudoku, word searches, a list of educational lawyers, just in case. I also included in the binder the admin Wi-Fi password for them, since that signal is stronger for some reason. I went ahead and wrote out the PD schedule for next year. Oddly, every Wednesday is listed as free time or work in your classroom. I'm sure they'll change it, but I don't know when they will find out what it says. I had a master list of donators and partners in the community. It was posted on a whiteboard in my office. I got over 4 dozen businesses and people in my community to help with various things or donate over the years. I spent a lot of my time building relationships with them and making deals. I took a photo of it and then erased the list. And I took the whiteboard with me since it was mine. On Friday, I flew the LGBTQ plus flag instead of the state flag. I also placed LGBT LGBTQ flags in each classroom in case the staff wanted to display them. Then I got yelled at 3 times. The first time was when I took back my chair. I was told it was unprofessional just to take it without asking, especially with guests present. I responded with, yes, it was unprofessional to take my chair without asking. The second time I got yelled at was when the TOA found the refrigerator gone. She said that it was community property. I told her, no, it's my property and I was told to take all of my property from the campus. The third time I got yelled at was when I was in the parking lot leaving and they found the piles of papers. The principal flagged me down and told me to clean it up. I told her I was off the clock and that the district never reimbursed me for the cabinets, so I had to take them with me. I am expecting a call from Human Resources today asking for my assistance in setting everything back up, since with all my stuff removed and erased, the admin team actually has to put in some hard work. I told them I would come in, but for my consultant rate, $75 an hour with a minimum contract of 12 hours. Part 4, the final chapter. So as you know, I left the world of being an administrator a few weeks ago. I tried to leave behind some nice gifts when I left. I wasn't looking to cause any problems my last few weeks, but the new admin team treated me in a way that was unacceptable. So I decided that Malcolm Reynolds had it right when he said, quote, I aim to misbehave. Well, the Tuesday after I left, I received a call from Human Resources. I ignored it. I then left for a road trip with my daughter where we went to San Francisco for a few days and went to 2 Giants games. Unfortunately, they lost both games. While we were on our trip, they called and emailed me in my personal email account. My work one was deleted by them. I ignored the calls and never opened the emails. My daughter and I then went to Disneyland for a few days and then returned this past Friday. I checked the voicemails and the emails. I was asked, begged, and then ordered to come to the Human Resources for important meetings. They said, it is very important that we speak to you as soon as possible. They said this repeatedly. So yesterday I went to the district office wearing cargo shirts, a shirt that I got from Disneyland, and flip-flops. I didn't work there, so I didn't need to dress up. When I arrived, I was originally treated like a visiting VIP. The HR manager, Human Resources manager, and her assistant tried to butter me up like a Pillsbury biscuit. After a few minutes of them trying to make small talk and me letting them know that I had plans to go to lunch in 30 minutes, they got to the point. They wanted me to turn over a few things that I took with me, though they belonged to me, they said were sorely needed at the school. They gave me a list from the new principal which included my chair, seriously, my refrigerator and appliances, my community contact board, people and businesses that I built relationships and partnerships with, my personally designed forms and worksheets, my two-way mirror, my lockdown buckets and fire drill bags. They also wanted copies of every record I kept and notes I took on the staff and the students. The notes I took on the staff were so I can personalize gifts for them and have conversations with them on their interests. I said no to all of those requests. I told the ladies that the furniture and appliances were mine, that I brought in. I stated that the chair was a gift to me from a friend and the principal can afford to buy her own chair. I also stated that I left any official school/district documents there, and any that I took with me and or deleted were of my own making and my intellectual property. I also stated that my contacts were developed over the years on my personal time and at personal cost to me. I also stated that everything I took that I had submitted reimbursement for was never reimbursed. So I kept my records and my pay stubs. I never saw a red cent from those submissions. They offered to pay me for some of these items and gave me a rough figure of what the district would pay me to return the fridge, the forms, the buckets, the bags, the mirror, and the contact board. I told them that I did not want to hand them over to the new admin team since they had treated me so poorly. They asked me again and tried to reason that some of these things could be interpreted as school property. I told them that they were welcome to try and force me to return anything that was legally mine to them, but I would be willing to fight it in court. I also told them that those 2 new administrators made me uncomfortable and that their treatment of me could be considered making a hostile work environment, especially when they tried to make me do their jobs for them. I then gave the Human Resources team my lawyer's information. I then wished the lady a good school year in the term to come and left. I doubt I will ever hear from them again. So am I the jerk for the way that I crippled this school after what they did to me? You would think that with all the money they saved by firing everyone and hiring the teacher on assignments and all of the replacement hires that were significantly less in terms of the cost of their salary, that they would be flushed with cash, that they would be able to buy all of these things and wouldn't have to beg the original poster here to bring everything back or else risk falling completely apart. I know a lot of school districts, especially in the United States, states are horrible. They are drastically underfunded, and there's some crazy bureaucratic red tape on everything that prevents things from actually getting done. And that's obviously not the fault of the teachers. They are usually doing the best they possibly can. I mean, even in this story, she is going out of her way to buy all of these things with her own money for the benefit of who? For the benefit of the kids that she's teaching. Otherwise, why would she spend all this money? It's not for her own personal enjoyment. I mean, obviously that's what it all leads to, is trying to help these kids out because there's not enough funding, so they claim, from the district to pay the teachers. It really does put the teachers in an unfair position most of the time. And clearly not every district is this bad. There are probably some really great ones out there, but you tend to hear a lot about these really horrible scenarios because situations like this are so extreme that what other choice do people have? It seems like the original poster here is a really sweet and thoughtful person. I mean, she's even giving personalized letters after she was the one who was forced out of her job, and stating how lucky she was to be able to work with them, and even giving them this scratch-off lottery ticket as kind of a symbolic gesture. It's just always a little strange when people try to save money on the thing that is the engine to making this entire thing work. And I think a lot of times it's probably because they're so removed from the process, they have no concept of how it works on a day-to-day basis anyway. In this case, we're talking about the school, but even in the case of a business or something, if they've never worked at that level, they probably don't know what the core value is, which is kind of like the same thing as a rich politician who's been rich his whole life, writing off a bunch of people because they're poor and he can't understand what that even means. Anyway, let me know how you see this down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Don't forget also to click on the YouTube channel to check out the newest YouTube shorts. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories in this series, use the playlist at the top of the description. When I was hired at my job, they promised me a raise after 6 months. When the time came, they went back on their word and did not honor our agreement. So because of that, I managed all of their computer systems in a way so that only I could fix something, and then I left. Almost immediately, they came crawling back to me, begging me for help to get their systems back online, and I agreed. But at my new consulting rate of $200 an hour, or $400,000 a year, they had no choice but to accept. Here's how I did it. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. I work in software development using very in-demand and complex frameworks and tools. The average salary doing what I do in my area is around $110,000 a year for a relatively simple, low-level job. By this, I mean a position where the employee does not have major responsibilities, works as part of a much larger team, etc. I worked on site and then remotely as a contractor for 3 years for a company, hereafter named The Company, while I was at university. As a contractor, I was the only developer in the entire company of a few hundred people and was solely responsible for all systems, development, testing, etc. This includes databases, web servers, and much more. This seems like a lot. It was, but I had full control of my environment and autonomy. I worked on the software projects that I wanted to and felt would have the most impact. During that period of remote work, upper management was changed. After completing my schooling, I received an offer from the company for $70,000. I knew this was below what I should be making, but I also realized the following. Number one, I had full autonomy in my environment. Number two, I had some gaps in my skill set. And number three, by staying in this environment, I could fill those gaps and very easily prepare to transition to another higher paying job. So new management and I reached an agreement. I would accept a salary of $72,000, and then after 6 months time, we would meet to go over my salary and it would be increased by at least 15%. This was included in my offer letter, which both new management and I signed. Fast forward to 6 months later, I have now filled every gap in my skill set and expanded on it to increase my skill set even more. The 6-month marker rolls by and nothing happens. I send new management repeated meeting requests and they are ignored. 3 weeks into the 6th month, I go to HR and raise the issue. HR, Human Resources, turns ghost white and makes the meeting happen. That afternoon, new management comes into my office and offers me a 1% raise. That is correct, a 1% raise. I kept my cool though and reminded them that I was guaranteed at least 15% per our agreement. New management completely denied making making this agreement and repeated their previous offer. I brought out my offer letter with both of our signatures on it and they started backpedaling. They said that they would talk and get back to me. I made it very clear that if I did not receive the agreed upon amount, we would have a problem. Fast forward to 2 weeks later, new management invites me into their offices. I am then offered a 6% raise. They tried to make excuses about budget restrictions, fairness to other employees, and whatever they could think of. I knew I had these options. Number 1, quit. Number 2, demand the 15%, possibly get it but severely damage my relationship with new management. Or number 3, accept the 6% raise and maintain a strong positive relationship with new management, allowing me to blindside them later. The wheels in my mind spinning, I agreed to the 6% raise. At that moment, I decided what I would do. I would take the raise, use the remainder of my time there to look for another job, and leave. A few months passes though, and my plan expanded. I began implementing the most cutting-edge technology, using the most modern frameworks, upgrading everything I could as aggressively as I could. Of course, this provided immense benefit to the company. That was the plan. I entrenched myself in every system in every way possible, increased the skill floor for my position as high as I could get it, and left. 4 months after I accepted the raise of 6%, I accepted an offer for a salary of $130,000 at another company. I put my 2 weeks notice in at the company and all hell broke loose. New management knew they had messed up and they were completely blindsided that I was unhappy with my position. Since I had graciously accepted the 6%, they thought they were off the hook. With me, I took all knowledge of almost every one of their systems. New management freaked out, so I did what any capitalist would do. I offered to come back as a remote contractor for $200 an hour. They had no choice but to accept. So over the last few months, I have been charging them $200 an hour to do the exact same thing I was previously doing for significantly less. Now, instead of being out a few $1,000s a year due to my raise, they've been out of over $35,000 in a few months with no end in sight. I even hired one of my good friends to help fill the hours. The money is nice, but the look on new management faces when this played out was priceless. It was the sweetest revenge of my life. I want to add that I never did anything unprofessional towards my fellow employees or employer. I am not billing inflated hours, sabotaging, or anything like that. Everything I did and have done is honest work. So am I the jerk for putting the company in a position where they have no choice but to pay me $200 an hour because they wouldn't honor their original agreement? This is pretty wild. If you just do the math on this, he's obviously not doing 40 hours a week because he's a contractor here, but if he were to, that would be a salary of $8,000 a week. And if you extrapolate that across an entire year, assuming he only works 50 out of 52 weeks in the year, that is a salary of $400,000. 416 if you were to do every week, but at just 50 weeks, that's $400,000. So when you look at it that way, the meager 15% bump up that he wanted to get before he started working doesn't seem like very much at all. And the thing is, he didn't just try and come at them with their raise while he was already working there. That was a stipulation that he set up before they even started working together at all. So they can't even pretend like they were blindsided or that it's an unreasonable ask, because he probably wouldn't have started working there in the first place if they didn't agree to that raise after the 6 month period, of course. And he obviously made it very clear in the post that he's not sabotaging them. In fact, he's giving them the best, most efficient technology possible. So in the long term, when more people develop these specific skills, the company will probably be in a better position overall. It's just probably going to be a financially painful transition to even get there in the first place. It seems like people are split on this one. Some people think that what he did was nefarious and kind of shady to the company, but other people think it was totally justified. But let me know how you see this down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for faking food poisoning to teach my boyfriend a lesson? So my boyfriend, who's 28, and I am a 26-year-old female, both love to cook and are very good at it. We often make meals together and it's something we really bond over. However, he has a serious issue with cross-contamination that drives me insane. As a result, I feel like I have to constantly keep my eye on him to make sure that he is sanitizing things properly. It frustrates me that I feel like I have to watch him, and it frustrates him whenever I point out something he's done that seems unsanitary. Last Friday evening, we were making carnitas when I noticed that he was using the same knife and cutting board that he had used to chop raw pork, to then chop up onions and radishes. I could literally see red splotches on the cutting board from where the meat had been sitting. I pointed out that whenever I need to cut both meat and produce, that I always do the produce produce first. That way I can use the same knife and cutting board without having to worry about cross-contamination. I then told him that we couldn't use the onions and radishes for this dish because I was not about to top my carnitas with them now that they were contaminated with raw pork. He flipped out and kept saying, "It's not like it's chicken." And I said, "So what? It's still raw meat and there's still potential for foodborne illnesses." He wouldn't let it go, so finally I was like, "Fine, I'll eat your tainted produce," which pissed him off further. He stormed off into our bedroom and refused to finish cooking with me. Without him knowing, I cut up new onions and radishes for garnishing, and we ate dinner separately. The next day, we were supposed to go to his parents' place as they were hosting a congratulatory dinner because my boyfriend recently got a new job. In the morning, I faked being ill and hung out in bed watching Netflix and reading most of the day. He seemed baffled by me being sick, and I said, "I don't know, I did eat those onions and radishes that you were so pressed about." He looked irritated after that, but he seemed to believe that I was actually sick. When it came time to start getting ready to head out to his parents, I said I was still too ill and ended up staying at home. His mother messaged me later on explaining that it was extremely rude of me to have missed the dinner and that I should have taken some Pepto-Bismol or something so that I could be there to celebrate with them. I didn't even bother responding, and when my boyfriend returned home that night, I could tell he was bummed, but not mad, that I missed the dinner. Multiple people in his family are now pissed because they think that I am an unsupportive girlfriend. I do feel guilty about missing this dinner since it was important to him, but I was also at my wit's end, as I've tried to talk about the contamination thing with him nicely many times in the past, but he always gets pissed off about it and doesn't want to change his ways. Am I the jerk? Jumping into the future, there is an update. To start, many of you suggested that I purchase color-coded knives and cutting boards and that I have a serious discussion with him about the subject. These are things that I've done in the past, but I figured another try wouldn't hurt. I sat down with him and explained that although cross-contamination might not be a big deal to him, that it was to me, and that it would make me feel a lot better if he would please take my feelings into consideration. He promised me that he would be more careful, but then the next afternoon I saw him put a cutting board away without washing it after having chopped raw chicken on it. This obviously bothered me, but I decided not to say anything since we were fresh out of conflict. That same night I took him to a nice dinner as a way to make up for missing the one at his parents' house. We had a lovely time and things seemed to be on the mend for a few hours. But later that night, however, he developed terrible food poisoning, and to make matters worse, he was supposed to start his new job the next morning and ended up calling in sick. He blamed me for it because he thought the food at the restaurant was what made him ill. I told him that I didn't see how it could have been that because we shared dishes and I was feeling fine. The following day, his mother called and let us know that she had just taken his dad to the hospital. Apparently, he had been feeling super unwell and we all assumed it was related to a chronic disease that he's had for a few years now. He ended up needing multiple blood transfusions and tests found none other than E. coli in his urine. In the days following, my boyfriend continued to miss work and I discovered that about half the people that attend his celebration dinner that weekend before ended up sick. A bunch of other stuff happened with his mother trying to blame me for, quote, getting people sick, but I won't even bother going down that rabbit hole at the moment. If you hadn't already guessed, my boyfriend got fired from his job without having worked a single day there. I guess not showing up on your first week isn't a good look. On the bright side, he has shown a sudden and intense interest in kitchen hygiene. Apparently getting sick himself and having his dad end up in the hospital is what it took. It's been a couple of weeks since this all took place. A lot of you suggested that I break things off, and at this point, I think it may be headed in that direction. So was I the jerk? For somebody who cooks that much, how has he made it this far in life without getting seriously sick in that way? It seems like that would have happened a long time ago, but maybe if he ever got sick before, it was just mild and he attributed it to something else, but this time was really just the time that broke the camel's back, especially when it came to his dad, who already has a pre-existing health condition and was so sick with this E. coli that he had to go to the hospital. What's pretty unbelievable is that after all of this, he still blames the OP, the girlfriend here, on him getting sick because of the restaurant that she took him to. I mean, even if it was a restaurant that got him sick, how would she be the one to blame for that? She doesn't personally vet every single restaurant. Nobody does. And the chances of that even being the case are so small, it doesn't even make sense to bring it up since they were sharing the same food. But all of that is after the fact. Going back to the original question of being a jerk or not for faking an illness, yes, I think that that is not right. You shouldn't pretend to be sick to teach someone a lesson, even if you are technically correct about the science of it, the hygiene of it, however you want to describe it. In a situation like this, or probably in most situations, all situations, pretending to be sick to get your point across is just wrong. You're just actually lying to that person to try and and prove a point. If you sit down with them and you tell them this is serious to me, I don't want you to do this, and they still disregard it, then yeah, you should probably break it off before you have to get to the point where you're teaching them a lesson by pretending to be sick. But maybe you see this totally differently. Let me know how you guys interpret the situation down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for refusing to stop wearing my favorite pair of pants? My girlfriend, a 23-year-old female, and I'm 22, we keep fighting over a certain pair of pants that I own and I love to wear. I love to wear them almost anywhere. When we go grab something from the local grocery shop, or when we go out and walk our dog, or when we're just chilling outside. They are light and airy, but also long, so I'm never too warm or too cold in them. They are probably my favorite pair to wear, and thus I wear them very often. My girlfriend, on the other hand, thinks they were made by the devil himself. She hates orange, and she hates the pattern on the pants, and she hates them as a whole because she believes they are ugly and inappropriate to wear. She also says I should get some proper pants to wear. Also, some of her friends trash talk the pants, as do my only male friends who care about fashion. Now, I do admit I have zero fashion sense, but I believe the pants do not look that awful for shopping in a supermarket or walking the dog. I also believe I'm not there to impress anyone and just want to feel good. I would like her to wear what I wear, but I do not want to dress well, so I am dressed for others, if that makes sense. I've offered to buy the same type of pants in a different color, but she dislikes the pants as a whole. I do not own many pants and would like to buy a nicer, more formal pair, but they're hard to come by. Money is not a problem, I think. Obviously, this is not a my husband didn't come to his own birth and I got mad type of post. None of us are jerks. We just are tired of talking about it and want to know who's in the right and who's in the wrong. So the girlfriend obviously really doesn't like these pants. She doesn't necessarily say that she's embarrassed when he wears them out with her, but that could also be part of the problem too, if she hates them that much. The situation is a little tricky because if there are no other pants that this guy loves as much as these specific pants that his girlfriend hates, what do you do there? Somebody's always going to be the loser in this situation. It sounds like he tried making this better by getting them in a different color, but that didn't solve the problem. So it sounds like the pants have got to go, or if not, there's going to be some problems. But let me know who you think is in the right and who is in the wrong here down below. Am I the jerk for naming my dog Brad? I've always thought it was funny when dogs have human names. Much more amusing to me than giving them obvious dog names like Spike or Jelly Bean or whatever. I never had an issue with Brad's name being what it is until recently. My sister got a new boyfriend, and I'm sure you can see where this is going. I don't think I have to say his name. Well, my sister came over the other day with him, and we met for the first time. Everything was all fine and good until he asked what my dog's name was. I laughed a little and said that his name was also Brad. He looked at me for a second and asked if I was joking or not. I told him no. His name actually is Brad. After that, his whole mood flipped, and the remainder of the visit just had an uncomfortable vibe. A while after they left, my sister called me and started berating me for, quote, disrespecting her boyfriend. Honestly, this seems like such a Brad thing for him to do, and I don't think I did anything wrong here, but maybe I'm wrong. Should I have lied about Brad's name so I didn't risk hurting his feelings? This is a situation that Brad the human probably thinks is a lot more serious than it actually is. The dog was already named Brad before human Brad was even in the picture. Maybe he was thinking that the dog was named Brad because of him, but that wouldn't even make any sense, which is probably why he assumed it was a joke. I think for a lot of people this wouldn't bother them at all, but some people probably would be offended by a situation like this if they started dating someone and then the dog was named after them, but it's just a coincidence. But let me know how you see this down below, and jerk or not a jerk for naming the dog Brad. Am I the jerk for damaging my ex's car and not paying for it? I broke up with my ex Ryan because I found him on Tinder talking to other women. I moved out of his house and I'm living in my own apartment. A few days ago, Ryan messaged me begging for me to come back. Ryan said he was sorry and wants to get back together. I told him I needed space. He asked if I was seeing anybody and I said no. Ryan told me I'm not seeing anybody either. I'm still so in love with you. Yesterday, when I was walking back from the grocery store, I saw Ryan at the Wendy's parking lot with another woman. At first, I assumed she was a friend until they started kissing. For my own amusement, I stealthily walked up to the car and knocked on his window. Ryan was so shocked, he put his car in reverse and hit something. He drove off and later texted me that I needed to pay for the damages. I blocked him. For the record, it was a BMW and he's 52 years old. Am I the jerk for damaging my ex's car and not paying for it? The OP here did not damage the ex's car. All she did was knock on the window and he damaged the car himself. He's the one who tried to speed out of there even though he was already caught. He made the decision to put the car in reverse and slam on the gas and crash into somebody else. And it kind of sounds sounds like it was a hit and run because the way she describes it is that he put his car in reverse, hit something, and drove off. Maybe it didn't happen in exactly that timing, but the way she wrote it made it sound like it was a hit and run. And this guy sounds snaky anyway. He's saying, I'm not seeing anybody either. I'm still so in love with you. And then he's in a Wendy's parking lot with his tongue in the mouth of another woman. In a situation like this, keep him blocked and move on. But what do you guys think? Jerk or not a jerk for supposedly damaging the ex's car? Am I the jerk for taking an item out of the cart that my son was pushing at Target while he was working there? Yesterday, I went to Target to buy some clothes for myself. There was one item that I was looking for, but I couldn't find. Since my 18-year-old son works there, I figured that it would be okay to look in one of the back rooms that was open. Incidentally, I ran into him while I was there. He was pushing a cart that happened to have the item that I was looking for, so I went ahead and grabbed it. But when he saw me, he yelled at me and demanded that I put it back and get out of the back room. I refused because he wasn't there to shop and these items are for people who shop there. He started to throw a giant tantrum, saying it was for some order. I asked him who it was for and he couldn't tell me. He ended up calling over a supervisor, and after some more arguing, I eventually got kicked out of the store because I wanted to buy an item. He is currently not willing to speak to me right now. So am I the jerk? The fact that people can't see that they are obviously the jerk in a situation like this is baffling. Even if this wasn't for an order that was already scheduled to go to some specific person, he could probably get in trouble for the perception that he's inviting family members into the back room of the store. But the fact that the mom here, the OP, is asking who the order is for, as if her son knows the person. It's probably just some name on a list that they have to deliver to. I feel bad for the son here because if the mom is that invasive while he's at work in the back room, I can't imagine how the mom is to him in all other aspects of his life. If you somehow see this as an NTJ, a not the jerk scenario, let me know why you think so down below. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories in this series, use the playlist at the top of the description. And next time you live stream, use the cream of the crop music. Search for Cream of the Stream on Spotify or whatever music platform you use for copyright-free music to use for your stream. It's free. Cream of the Stream. Either way, thanks a lot for listening. I'll see you guys next time. My wife got a secret new husband, my daughter got a secret new dad, and I got revenge. For 4 years, they coordinated and played me for a fool in a disgustingly elaborate way. This is how I found out what happened and what I did to get even. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. I need to get this off my chest. I lost my dignity, my pride, my love. I'm a man who will be walking the walk of shame because of what I did. I disowned and destroyed my own family. I'm 48 years old and this story started when I was 20. I met a girl who I thought was perfect. She was 19. We just clicked. We had the perfect chemistry. We dated for 2 years before she got pregnant at 21 and then we moved in. I was living with my mom at that time. My father died when I was 15. My mom never remarried. She had a consultancy firm where I worked as a receptionist. My late father's business was sold off. It was a construction company since I was still young at the time. I became a father myself at 23 to a baby girl. She was the most beautiful girl. The bond between me and my girlfriend deepened after this. 2 years later, we get married. I joined a job as a computer programmer. I earned 6 figures because it was in high demand. Our lives take off. My wife wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. I agreed, but also recommended to her that she can take up a part-time job to spend her time. Things take a turn when I was 29 and she was 28. Her father had a terrible accident that made him immobile from the waist down. If that wasn't bad, he was a sole earner. I had a talk with my mom and my mother-in-law, father-in-law, and sister-in-law moved in with us. They lived in a rented place and now their sole earner is immobile. Finances were the issue. My sister-in-law took up a part-time job, as did my wife, to support her family. During this time, I also inherited from my late grandmother's will, which was split into 2 and was put for a college fund and my insurance by my mother. I had no issues with it, but my wife wanted to buy a house with it so we could move out from here. I had no problem, but she specifically wanted to buy a house with her mother's name using my inheritance, and both the sisters would work to pay off my inheritance. This was the issue. A distance was forming between us because I found her proposal weird. 2 years passed by, my mother suffered a stroke as she had several clots and doctors needed to do surgery urgent and fast. It was successful, but my wife wanted my mom to stay at the hospital rather than come home because it would be difficult to have 2 at-home patients at once. I told her I agree, but I will hire a nurse. She denied. She wanted me to hire 2 nurses to take care of my father-in-law and my mom or none. I told her she will have to pay for her father's expenses because I was already handling bills, groceries, taxes, our daughter's private school, and now this nurse. I won't be able to pay for her father's nurse. They should be able to afford it because both sisters make a combined income of nearly $60,000 a year, which was probably more than enough given that they lived and ate for free. My relationship with our daughter soured a bit at this time. She began disrespecting me and was mean to me openly. I thought she was just having child issues. She was 8 years old at the time. My mother had a speedy recovery and she voiced her opinions that she wants to sell her consultancy firm and put the money in my name. My wife had an argument right there because she wanted to give it to our daughter and my wife, as I had already gotten my share of inheritance from my grandmother. What surprised me even more was that her mom and her dad were quiet about it. My mom reminded her that it was her money and she won't mind giving her inheritance as insurance plans. Nope, my wife had problems with me because you see, we don't have a joint account. She can't access my account and I can't access hers. She wants a joint account. We had an argument and it was decided that my mom will give the whole amount of money to me, and that was the end of it. So a few months passed by like this. Unfortunately, my father-in-law passes away. It was harsh, especially to my wife. I tried to console her in every way I can. I handled both household and workload all by myself. I'm not bragging. I tried to do everything I could, but it was still not enough for her. The funeral was my responsibility. It goes well, but still she'd complain how I could have done better. She began to sleep in a separate room with our daughter who was 9 years old now. I convinced her to attend therapy until things settled down. We were intimate again, reconnected in a better and stronger way, but I sensed something was off with our daughter. She would shut me down every time I wanted to talk to her. It hurt seeing her like this. 2 years passed by as I tried to build a better bond with our daughter, and this time around, my mother passes away. away. She had another stroke and sadly could not survive. I was devastated by her loss. You see, she raised me all by herself for the majority of my life because my father was busy. It was also the reason I wanted our daughter to have a better relationship with both of us and was giving a tremendous amount of effort to achieve that. I went into a depression, but there was no response from my wife. My daughter didn't even attend the funeral, and I was saddened by it. 2 months after my mother's death, my mother-in-law asked me if I could move out from my mother's house because I was overly depressed and I should get over it. I'm also ruining the atmosphere and it'll lighten me up. I calmly told her, I want to remind you of your husband's passing. You and both of your daughters were in grief for 6 to 7 months. We never asked you to move out. How dare you even ask me to move out of my own house? She was taken aback by this and went fully quiet by it. I talked to my wife regarding this, but she didn't give me any response. I guess it was 2 days later after this incident that I was grabbing something from the fridge and I noticed my daughter's phone. A text came through that read something like,
It's good that the old witch is gone now. You can have the house to yourselves and we can party on your birthday.
Excuse me? What? My daughter was 11 years old at the time, and what old witch? I read the conversation and yes, she was referring to my mother. She called me an ape, controlling even though I never denied her anything except the things that I deemed was useless for her. She wanted a pony at 6 years old, a koala at 9, a panda, and her own car at 11. Who does that? I called my wife and I showed her these. Her response was mostly about me looking into our daughter's phone. We had an argument about it before she stormed off. She again began to sleep in a separate bed. I tried to make amends, but she shut me down. It took me agreeing to our daughter's birthday party to get her to talk to me again. So, 3 years passed by. For a quick review, my daughter is now 15 years old, I'm 38, and my wife is 37. I had to go to another city for 4 months. I landed another job that provided me with a ton of opportunities and even better pay. When I returned, my wife's entire demeanor changed around me. She quit her job and would hang out more with her friends, which I supported. She dressed up in more expensive and posh clothes, you get the idea. I thought it was a change of habit and I was fine with it. But our daughter just openly disrespected me, was mean right to my face. I kept trying and trying not to freak out. My mother-in-law, sister-in-law, and my wife were telling me that it was just hormones and that she's just a kid. I stayed upset, but yeah, I trusted them. The bedroom skyrocketed at this time between me and my wife. She was doing things that we liked and trying out new things, and I enjoyed every bit of it. Except for one day, she brought up the idea of me being caged, as in chastity caged. I shut her down immediately. We argued for a week before she got frustrated and dropped the topic. Our adult life dwindled here. Things got worse from here. My wife suddenly wants to go on a girls' trip with her sister-in-law and our daughter. I had no issues as it would be great. I had to pay a nice sum of money for it, but it was okay. She didn't call me for 3 days. I only had chats with her mom and I chit-chatted here and there. It was odd for me. I asked her about this when she returned and she told me that she was just tired. I asked her to see photos. She saw a lot of friends, both male and female, and it sent me into alert because she assured me it was just her friends and a few male friends. I saw nothing suspicious, so I was okay. 2 months later, it was our daughter's birthday and I wanted to plan something for her. My wife asked not to as she will celebrate it with a girls' night. I was taken aback and I voiced my opinion. Who takes their daughter to a girls' night? She told me it wasn't like that, but rather her friends and their daughters only. No drink was involved and I was fine with it. My birthday was around the corner after this event. Keep in mind, our adult life is bland now. It's once a week. I tried to initiate it more, but she always came up with excuses. I never celebrated my birthdays after my mom passed away, but each year my wife gives me gifts, so I kind of started to expect this. My wife tells me she has to go shopping with our daughter. She goes out for 6 hours. No calls, no texts, and no gifts. When I ask her about it, she tells me one of her friends got into an accident and she stayed there and she couldn't receive my calls. 2 weeks after this, my wife was showing me some pictures from our daughter's girls' camp, and our daughter called her that she needed her. She handed me her phone and went out of the room. A text came to our daughter that said,
Hey, my dear daughter, I'm sorry for this late reply. I'm the lucky one to be your mom's boyfriend. Tell your mama I love her and kiss her for me. I'll text you soon.
It took me a whole minute to read that text over and over. And still, I could not believe it. I scroll up to see my daughter texted this person to tell them, "I'm glad you're my mom's boyfriend. I really wish you were my dad. XOXO." What? I go to the toilet, I lock the door, and I read this conversation. All things noted, this guy is having an affair with my wife, and our daughter knows. This guy is having an affair, and our daughter knows. What in the world? I saw pictures of vacations, girls' trips, our daughter's birthday. They went to a candlelight dinner as a family. This man was kissing my wife right in front of our daughter, and my daughter pointed at them like it was some sort of romantic thing. What's more is that my sister-in-law knew. The more I scrolled down, the more my heart sank. It was this guy who gave my wife the idea about the chastity. It seemed to me that my daughter and wife were both texting him. What's more is that this account wasn't even of her real name. It was of a different username, but this guy knew everything about my family. Even on my birthday, my wife and my daughter were with this guy at his house. What? He was over at my house. He slept on my bed while I was gone for 4 months, and even worse, this has been going on for 4 years? 4 whole years. I heard a loud bang on the toilet door. It was our daughter. I just came out and stared at her. This was the first time I stared at my daughter like this. The same daughter that I looked at with pride, love, and respect just sank to indifference and disappointment. I wasn't even angry. She was red and crying. She didn't know what to say. My wife was there, as was my sister-in-law and my mother-in-law. I just asked my mother-in-law if she knew what her daughter did. My wife responded, "We can talk." I don't know what came over me, but I just yelled out, "You shut the F up." I yelled this so loud that even the neighbors might have woken up. I questioned my mother-in-law again, and she nodded. She nodded. I looked at my daughter and I told her I'm sorry I couldn't be a better father, but I'll do this one thing for her and divorce her mother. I called my wife her mother for the first time while addressing her, so this guy can be her father whom she dearly wants. I looked at my wife and I told her she has 9 days to the end of the month to pack up and leave with her family. I'll hand over the divorce papers, but for now, move out. She kept crying, but my yelling and response caught her off guard. She knew I wasn't in the mood to argue or to talk. I gave up. It's over. This was it. I couldn't sleep that whole night. I just stared at the wall and my phone, looking at our family photos. The next morning, I tell my wife not to cook for me because I don't trust her. She might poison me. I'm not gonna lie, she broke down and I felt that I was out of line with this, and I was going to file for divorce today. She tried to talk, but I had none of it. My mother-in-law asked me to wait and listen to her before making my decision. I have a friend who's a lawyer. I meet him and lay all my cards on the table, and he just tells me this: "I've been a lawyer for 12 years. He's 41. "And haven't seen a case infuriating and saddening as yours." He hugged me. He told me that his uncle is the family judge that will probably be handling my case. But before that, I need proof. And loads of it. He gave me a number of someone who happens to be a private investigator. I hired him. I went through my daughter's phone, nothing. I talked to my wife. She told me sorry over and over again, but no remorse at all. My daughter, my sister-in-law, my mother didn't come anywhere near me. My daughter was even to the point of being afraid of me so much that she lived 2 days at her friend's house. Her friend's father called me, and I had to inform him of the whole situation. He said he's sorry. It's hard for him to believe what my daughter did, as it should be. No man could ever dream of being betrayed like this by their own children. The private investigator found the guy that my wife was cheating with. It turns out